Welcome to the Core Women Podcast, the place for women entrepreneurs, authors, and self-starters looking to build community and gain valuable insights through expert interviews with women at the top of their game. Join your host, podcaster, producer, expert coach, entrepreneur, and author, Dr. Summer Watson, as she aims to inspire and empower you through these candid conversations. Lean in and embrace the journey. It's time to start the show. Here's your host, Dr. Summer Watson.
Welcome back to the Core Women Podcast, where we explore the deep bonds that shape our lives, especially the ones with fur and forelegs. Today's guest is Helen St. Pierre, who is a certified dog behavior consultant, professional trainer, and founder of Old Dogs Go to Helen, a sanctuary for senior dogs. She's also the author of Old Dog, New Dog, a guide to supporting your aging best friend and welcome a new one. Helen is here to talk about the emotional and practical realities of living with both senior dogs and puppies, how to honor the journey of an aging best friend while opening your heart to a new companion. Whether you're navigating grief, caregiving, or simply want to better understand your dog at any age, this episode is full of wisdom and warmth. Let's get right into this and welcome Helen.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Oh, and I'm excited to talk to you. Being a dog mom, I'm just ready to get into this. But before we jump into the professional aspects of your life, if you could describe your journey in one word to this point, what would that word be and why is that word important to you?
I would say organic in terms of it was a very slow growing process to get to where I am today. There wasn't a massive black or white moment where I woke up and decided, I think I'll just focus on dying and death and doing this.
Right.
It was really an organic process of growth, which, I think we are missing a lot in today's culture in terms of like we're just supposed to wake up and know exactly what we want to do. And that's not how this happened for me. It was a real growth as a person, as a professional to get to this point.
I really appreciate that word and that explanation of your why, because a lot of us think, oh gosh, and have been conditioned to think we need to be at A, B, or C point
Yes.
by such and such age or by this milestone or this marker. And that's not necessarily how it always happens. And even if we do follow that traditional path, whether that's going and, creating your own business or going to college, you still may not end up at the same place. Many times you don't, right? So
Yes.
thank you, Helen, for describing that. But Helen, you've dedicated your life to dogs, from training to rescue to writing. What inspired your journey into senior dog advocacy and behavior consulting?
Well, it started with behavior, so I've been in the animal world for over 23 years at this point, and I started in shelter work, working at a very high kill shelter just for space and going through the motions of seeing what it really looks like when you take all the rainbows and butterflies away from dogs, like what's going on underneath the surface of dogs that are moving through the system that are being euthanized because of space or because they're sick or they're elderly and that was where I really started. And that built in me a sort of an armor of I need to do everything I can to help as many as I can to avoid that or to be better when they come out of that. So I really got into training from shelter work. And then the dogs that I worked with and said goodbye to in that shelter stayed with me. And I felt like I constantly needed to repay the debt that I had taken from being the one that euthanized those dogs for space. So I always donated all my time for shelter work, training shelter dogs, training shelter staff, volunteers, creating programs. And then, of course, in this world, you bring in the animal world, you bring your work home. And so I started bringing home the senior dogs because senior and hospice dogs are often the last to get adopted. Not a lot of people walk in and go, give me the most expensive medical mess you have. And so I was like,
Yeah.
give me them. And it just sort of, again, like I said, it was a slow growing process. I started with one at my home, then I would have two, and now I have 15. Behavior consulting was where it started. And I still do behavior consulting, but the work with the senior and the hospice dogs has now influenced my work in behavior consulting and it's changed my perspective in certain things and vice versa. So it was a very organic process, but they both are equally important in my eyes.
Wow, what a process
Yeah.
and what wisdom that you bring into this work. Having started where you did at shelters, at high kill shelters, and you mentioned that you had to, did you personally euthanize
Yes.
these dogs?
Yeah.
How did
So,
you do it?
well, it's literally part of the work, right?
Yeah,
It still goes on today, and it's just a product of the systems and the society that we have is this massive overcrowding. So our shelter was an animal control base. We also had an on-site crematorium. We had cats and dogs and all of this stuff. And so it was like if our kennels were full and we got 5 dogs in, we would have to go through the runs of the kennels of which were the dogs that had been there the longest, or the dogs that were the sickest, or the dogs that were oldest, and we would have to euthanize those dogs to make room for the 5 dogs that are coming in.
yeah,
And it's just the reality, unfortunately, of our society and this massive amount of overpopulation and overcrowding. But starting in that was actually a very, I mean, it wasn't a good thing in terms of
right.
emotionally, but it was a very good thing because it really opened my eyes to the reality of, again, what's going on underneath the surface.
Yeah, absolutely. And many people don't really look at that, or even still, if people are breeding dogs or not getting their animals fixed and not being responsible owners, this is what happens. This is the end result.
Yes, and I'm completely for, I support ethical breeders, I support ethical rescue and shelter. I
Yeah,
think
right,
there's a multimodal issue here of this, of the culmination of this has created
right.
this problem that we're in. It's not a one size fits all. If this stopped, then all of this would stop. But
Oh,
it's just
right.
the reality of the society that we're in.
Oh, right. I mean, even right now, just, I've seen and read news articles and newsreels on people that are getting deported, and now shelters are getting really full because
Yes.
guess what? They have animals that are part of their family, and if they're deported, their dogs are being put into kennels.
And we've taken those into our sanctuary as well. We've had people that were deported that have senior animals that have come to us. So
Yeah,
again, you're completely right.
yeah,
It's such a complex, multi-layered problem, but it's where I started.
yeah.
And it certainly built a level of resilience, especially in end of life and looking at certain things like there are worse things than death, especially when you look through some of those lenses. And that has helped shape my ability to look through different perspectives of end of life care.
Well, let's hear more about that. So tell us about your rescue and sanctuary, Old Dogs Go to Helen. What makes caring for senior dogs so meaningful, and what do you wish more people understood about them?
So we are a sanctuary. We do not adopt out. We take senior hospice or special needs dogs, special needs being that their quality of life is definitely compromised by something that might be wrong with them. And then we will give them the best quality of life, but also know how to assess, like, do we want to also give them the best quality of death?
Yeah.
And so hospice doesn't always mean old, too. We have had young dogs, puppies that have come to us with liver or major kidney failure issues, all of that. And we also don't just specialize in dogs. We have hospice horses, we have hospice pigs, we have
Wow.
hospice goats. You name it, if it's dying, special needs, or needs all kinds of issues, we will take it in here on 20 acres. We do it out of our home. It's my husband and I and our 2 daughters. We're not a big facility. We don't have massive staff coming in and out or operating hours. We're not open to the public. We do this really just to give these dogs a middle space. And so let's give it a completely legitimate reason for a senior dog to end up displaced would be like their human passes away. So
Right.
if an elderly person passes and their 15-year-old dog has nowhere to go, we don't want to see those dogs go to shelters. I don't want to see any dog in shelters, but especially senior dying dogs. So we created Old Dogs Go to Helen to give them that soft place to land, whether that's for 24 hours, whether that's for a few weeks, or whether, like, our longest residents have been here for over a year. It really is based on what they need and what their end of life and quality of life looks like.
Gotcha. Wow. And where do you get your funding? How do you get your grants?
Yeah, all public donations.
Okay.
Yeah, we get it all through public donations. We have a really wonderful community support. What was great was because Old Dogs Go to Helen sort of came as a sister to my original behavior consulting business. People already knew who I was. I had a reputation in the community as doing a lot of work with animals, working with the shelters and training those dogs. So when I started doing this, it wasn't like I was coming out of the blue as someone that the community didn't know. So I have a lot of wonderful community support. And then now that's translating into national support where people know of Old Dogs Go to Helen nationally and some internationally, but it's a really good thing. There's not a lot of senior sanctuaries in the country. Most senior places are rescues where they take the seniors in and they adopt them out. We
Right.
don't do that. We take in the ones that they're going to finish their life here. We don't want to put them through another transition.
So if they're with you for another 3, 4 years, they're going to finish their life with you there.
I'll be honest with you, we don't take dogs that usually have 3 or 4 years, which sounds terrible because people will call and say, I have a 9-year-old dog and I'm looking for a place for him to go. And I'll say, is he dying? And they're like, no, he's fine. I'm like, well, then we are the space for the dogs that have 6 months left or have a lot of tumors on them and don't have that time. We'll send people to other senior rescues with those dogs where they can place them, but we are the last stop for certain dogs that we know don't have a ton of time left to them.
Gotcha. You're more like that hospice care where you're really caring for those that are impacted by maybe disease or hardship, where they're not going to have a long time left to live. So,
Exactly.
and that's really great to know because, again, as we talk about this, having the sanctuary, it's very different than having a rescue of some sort that actually adopts the animals out.
Yes.
Good to know. You also have a new book, a co-author book. It's called Old Dog, New Dog, a guide to supporting your aging best friend and welcoming a new one. And it's such a heartfelt and practical guide. What was the inspiration behind writing it, and what do you hope readers take away from it?
Well, Kathy is, at this point now just a very good friend. We're like family with each other, but we were both speaking at a conference put on through Family Dog Mediation or LEGS, created by Kim Brophy, who actually wrote the foreword of our book. So she was speaking on puppies, and I was speaking on senior dog care. And I had spoken first, and then I think Kathy spoke. And while she was talking, I was like, all of this rings true to exactly what I had just said. And so I sort of tackled her after her talk at her table. And I said, we really need to put this together as a book because both of us get the same question over and over again. I've got a senior dog and I want to get a puppy, or my senior dog is passing soon and I want to alleviate my grief. So I'm going to bring a puppy. How do I do that? What's the best way to do that? And both Kathy and I have a very strong sense of quality of life. We're both on the same page for in terms of quality of life and quality of death and how we read that. And our techniques and our methods and our ways of looking at behavior consulting are very similar. So it was kind of a no-brainer. There was nothing like this for people out there, whether they were professionals or the public, to have this kind of easy to follow step-by-step process of how to do it. And for me, the most important piece was my chapter on the seniors and assessing seniors and making life better for seniors, and then on end of life as well. That was really important, that there was something out there tangible and easy to read that clients could access very quickly with a senior dog in the home.
Yeah, and that is so important. Having had a senior dog, well, I also have another senior dog. She's almost 13 and she's a little Shih Tzu. And so, but having had most recently a dog pass March 6th of this year, it was really impacting. It was really difficult. It's almost like all these ups and downs during that end of life, it's so difficult and you don't realize it until you get into it, like, wow, how do I go through this and how do I help them go through this gracefully, graciously, however you want to put it, right?
Right.
And that was difficult because you're assessing every day. I was online every day assessing, doing those assessment tools. Like, how do I do this? So to have a couple of chapters in a book that address that is so important because I know I'm not the only one thinking that. I know I'm not the only one going online trying to figure this out, right? To read something like that about your fur family member is so important. It's so helpful. So thank you for writing that.
You're welcome.
It really makes a huge difference.
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, in our experiences with death in our culture is that we don't talk about it or go through it or have any real education, not even just on grief itself. I'm talking that death comes in multiple facets, but even on the physiological process of death. What does death look like physically? We don't experience or talk about that until we're going through it.
Yeah.
That's a real problem in our culture. We do talk about life and how plants grow and how babies are born and grow in the utero and all of that stuff. We even plan life. We talk about planning for things, but we very rarely talk about death until we're going through it. And that makes it very uncomfortable, very jarring, very scary. And so the goal, honestly, for me would be to really continue to educate people so that we are having that conversation before we're going through it. We can talk about death, and talking about death and our animals dying doesn't mean we want it to happen. I think that's a real issue. We get stuck in this. If I talk about death, does that mean that I want them to die? Not at all. It means that you're preparing for a very normal chapter of their life that we're all going to go through.
Yeah, and I had to kind of giggle there because it was during Christmas time before March came around. And I told my husband, he's like, she's going to be around for another couple of Christmases. And I looked at him and go, no, she is not. No, she is not. Let's get this straight. She's not. And I said, it's the reality, honey. And he's like, can you not say that? And I said, I'm not jinxing it. I'm not telling you. I'm telling you the
It's just real.
reality. It's the reality. I said,
Yeah.
are you looking at her? Are you looking at her behavior? The way she sits down, her arthritic body, she's in pain no matter how much meds. And we'd had those medicine organizers, right?
Yes,
Where you
yes,
put
the
the
pill
pills in, right?
organizers.
So we
Yes.
had four and we gave her four different medicines 4 times a day. And she got monthly shots. And I had this red light thing to try and help her joint. I mean, so many things. And then on top of that, I'm like, here's the reality.
Yeah, no matter what. That's the thing is
Yeah.
like you can do all these things. You're not going to ever escape it. They
No.
are going to go at
Yeah.
some point. And that's very difficult for a lot of people to wrap their brains around, primarily because of our own culture. Again, we push it away,
Yeah.
even with people. As a result, a lot of animals end up suffering because we are so focused on the quantity of time rather than the quality of time. And that's a problem.
It is a problem. And, even as a trained professional and having studied people like Elizabeth Kubler-Ross and the emotional aspects of death and dying, it's still difficult as you're going through it. It is incredibly difficult, especially when what I call innocence, like babies and animals are innocents. They rely on us, they look at us to make these great decisions for them. And unfortunately, we have to make the decision of when is this pet going to go?
Right. But it's one of the best gifts that we can give them in terms of euthanasia.
Yeah.
Euthanasia is, unfortunately, we don't have it enough for humans. And I'm a very strong advocate for death with dignity. I'm trying to get it here in New Hampshire, but we can do it for them.
Yeah.
This idea of natural death and that they'll just curl up and go to sleep. That's sort of what we want, we envision. But the reality is the physiological process of death usually is not pretty like that. There's multiple systems in the body that it will be shutting down at different times. And there's 3 stages of death, but that second and third stage of death can last for quite some time. And without medical intervention, it can be extremely painful or uncomfortable for the animal or creature, whatever it is that's going through that passage. So we can give an easier death through euthanasia, and that's what I advocate for.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for doing that. What are some of the biggest challenges you see when people try to balance the needs of a senior dog and a young, energetic puppy together?
It's bandwidth. And that's what Kathy and I answer now. It is total bandwidth on the person.
Yeah.
There are so many cases that I have looked at that a client has said to me, I've got this senior dog and I'm bringing this puppy home. And on paper, I'm looking at it and I'm like, this is never going to work. This is going to be
Mm,
awful. And they make it look seamless and it's beautiful because they have the time, they have the bandwidth, they understand the management and the needs of everything. And then there have been some where it's looked beautiful on paper and it has actually been completely the opposite. So it really is down to what are you able to manage? And you can hope for the best, but are you prepared and expect the worst just in case? What do we do if? It's not about letting your senior dog raise that puppy. You're going to be raising that puppy while also helping your senior go through their end of life and sunset. And you have to have a bandwidth
Yeah.
for both of that. So there's no right or wrong way to do it. What we want to do is say to people, we hope it goes fantastically well. We hope your senior dog loves it. We hope your puppy understands that you have a senior and that they need to modify. But if they don't, here's this book for all the things that you can do if that doesn't happen.
Awesome. There's a belief that puppies can bring old dogs back to life. From your experience, is that true or more complicated than it seems?
Much more complicated than it seems. I mean, look, if you look at people like grandparents, right, that when they meet their first grandchild and they're just, oh my God, like that's fantastic, but they can't do it for 24 hours a day, 365, the way that parents themselves can, right? Like,
Right.
and if you look at biologically, like, and dogs don't necessarily go through this, but humans do, where, we talk about women go through going offline. We're no longer fertile after a period of time because our bodies go, we're now going to be into the teaching mode rather than the actual childbirthing mode. Like we absolutely can be caretakers and continue to do that, but we're not supposed to be in the raising piece. And so for senior dogs, puppies can absolutely be like, oh my God, I remember this. I love to play. This is really fun. But I don't have the energy and bandwidth and strength to do it all day, every day, as I might have been able to when I was 3. So we have to be managing our expectations that it could bring back some life to our senior dog, but it won't make them 3 years old again. We love those seniors, and if it brings back a little bit of life, fantastic, but it's not going to make them young again.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally get it. I used to take some of my college friends way back when to my great aunt's apartment in San Francisco. We used to take the train from Berkeley to San Francisco, and she used to love it. Like, she used to love us hanging out, but she loved us hanging out for an afternoon,
And then
right?
it's get out.
It's like, get out, right? But then there are grandparents who raise grandchildren,
Yes.
and they've got that bandwidth.
But it also depends.
It depends,
60-year-old
right?
grandparents versus 80-year-old grandparents.
Right.
Physiologically, you're going to be coming up against certain things that are difficult, like being able to lift a 4-year-old, versus
Exactly.
a 15-year-old Maltese with an 8-week-old German Shepherd puppy. That 15-year-old Maltese might really want to play and do that, but they're not big enough, so there are all these contexts and all these variables that we have to take into consideration. So it's not that senior dogs, it can't absolutely bring a little life back into them, but we have to be really respectful and cautious that age definitely plays a role and physical ability over time.
Absolutely. And age for the pet as well as for the human. I mean,
Yes.
I can tell you at 56 years old, when my dog was declining, and yet she still wanted to take a walk so badly. And midway through the walk, it was like she would stop.
Yeah. I gotta lay down now.
I got to lay down. So this 56-year-old would bend down, pick her up, and carry her the rest of the way home. Right. And my husband was like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm carrying her home because she wanted to walk." Right. And I was like, "And she can't do it anymore." He's like, "Well, then take her on shorter walks." I'm like, "She just kept going until she stopped."
Right. But it's the same. We see people all the time. It's like when you get to a certain age and they will say, I used to be able to have this size of a dog, but I now
Right.
know if that dog gets older, I'm not going to be able to lift them in the car. So I'm downsizing and I'm going to smaller. There is no one straight answer that's right or wrong. It's just sort of looking at it through all angles, and every case is different.
Absolutely. I mean, it really got me thinking and reflecting on, doing my own personal assessment. Because when I was thinking about like even bringing another dog into the home, I love that mid-sized 50, 45-pound dog. But as I get older, I'm going to need a lift. Or I'm going to need an elevator in my home or a one-story home. I'm going to need, ramps for the dog into the car. Like there are all these different things about bringing a new baby into the house. Or if it's not a baby, what about a dog that's 5 or 6?
Right.
So there's all kinds of variables that, you really want to consider. I love this conversation and how this has evolved for you. I loved what you started out with in regards to the word organic, because it does seem like an organic evolution. And so as we come to the close of the interview, my last question is, what's the single most important thing a pet parent can do to set themselves and their senior dog up for success when welcoming a new dog into the home?
Well, so many answers to that. Kathy would want me to say, know your bandwidth. But I would also say, be comfortable with the fact that you can bring a puppy home, you're still going to lose your senior dog. Don't get a puppy to prevent your senior dog from getting older. Like that sort of, I'm going to get a puppy because that will bring my senior dog back to life again. We have to get really comfortable with death. But bandwidth, know your bandwidth. What are you able to do every single day for probably every day for quite some time while you are balancing a puppy and a senior dog?
Thank you, Helen, for joining me on the Core Women podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so fun.
Oh, absolutely. This was a blast. Thank you so much. And you can follow Helen St. Pierre on Facebook at No Monkey Business Dog Training, or go to her website, nomonkeybusinessdogtraining.com, and you can find her book on Amazon.
Thank you for joining us on the Core Women podcast with Dr. Summer Watson. We're so glad you're here and would love to connect more with you. Find us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Core Women, and on Twitter at Core Women 1. For more about Core Women and Dr. Watson, visit corewomen.com. Want more support and resources for amazing women like you? Great! Join Dr. Watson and Jen Fontanilla at the Life, Love, and Money Collective, a Core Women production that aids in understanding the key traits that might be getting in the way of living a life that you are absolutely passionate about. Connect with Summer and Jen and find out more at thelifeloveandmoney.com.